It's my feel-good breakfast show.
Welcome back. It is your feel-good breakfast show, and wow, what a jam-packed show we've had so far. Now, the term quiet quitting, we've been using it a lot, especially this morning, and perhaps you've been hearing it a lot more, but it seems to apply to more than just our jobs. People can now even quiet quit relationships and friendships. Now, when you find yourself in a toxic friendship, it can be hard to know what to do. Do you want to fight for it? Do you address the issue? And how to break off any bad energy from your life. Now, to help us navigate toxic friendships, we have counselors Ashley Lawrence, Lisa Mental, and as well as Susan Knighton-Fit, who is here to join us. It's so great to have you all here. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much for joining us. Yeah, this is going to be a conversation which I can't wait to get into. I think everybody needs to listen to this right now, Mzansi. So let's get straight into it. Ash, maybe I can ask this one to you. What are the signs of a toxic friend or a toxic friendship? Let's say that, yeah.
And I think this is what people really want to know, right? We want to know, you know, is this someone just having a bad day? Is this maybe my stuff? Like, what's going on here?
Yeah.
And I think a good starting point would to be, how do you feel around that friend?
Okay.
How do they make you feel? If you've made plans with them, are you feeling slightly anxious to see them? Are you worried about what they're going to say, what they're going to do? So you want to tap into actually how they're making you feel.
Okay.
And a second thing is, often with toxic friendships, what we often see, you know, I see in my counseling practice a lot, is that it's a very one-sided friendship. So you're always the one that's reaching out, you're always the one that's putting in effort, and that's
Sounds
not
familiar.
really being reciprocated.
Yeah.
You become maybe even the therapist to your friend, but they're actually never here for you.
All right.
So that's something I would...
Trust your gut.
Yeah, absolutely, that intuition.
Like
Oh, but we don't always listen to our gut. You know, the little red flag is there, the carnival, instead of actually a red flag. Susan, what is it about people that are hesitant or not just stepping away from a toxic friendship? What's keeping them in that cycle?
Well, I think, you know, we don't like to give up on stuff we've worked on. We've sacrificed ourselves and put ourselves into it and into that space. But one of the dynamics which happens, obviously, inside of a toxic relationship is it slowly but surely eats away at our own self, at our self-identity and our self-esteem. And sometimes when we get to that point, you know, we kind of would rather be in that friendship than be alone. And that's what kind of makes these things so tough to kind of step away and say, hey, I need to get out of this fog and I need to look after myself. I think that, in essence, is often the core of it.
Okay. I like that. That gives a good perspective to it. I have this situation, and maybe we can play this out, where you sometimes feel like it might be you that's the problem, right? I mean, with any relationship, whether it's a friendship or an actual relationship itself, you always find, like, is it me? You question yourself. You don't want to ruin that loyalty aspect. But sometimes it could be the case, and I've heard this theory before. Lisa, maybe I can ask you this, that it's sometimes the effect of, like, past traumas in that person that's now coming out or being expressed in a very unique way, and often the case in a friendship. Is this something that's very true in your case? Have you noticed this?
Definitely. Our internal world is projected externally. And I have a different dynamic to add to this because, and this is a tough pill to swallow, but we are all capable of being toxic people because it's in our human nature to go through struggles, you know? Yes, there are perhaps maybe more toxic people than others, but we are all capable of being those people because of internal struggles, self-esteem issues, any struggles that we go through. We can go through a period where we're toxic to other people because we're projecting that.
And we might not even actually be aware of that, right?
No, might not be aware of that.
Plot thickens.
And it's a scary reality. I mean, no one wants to think of themselves as toxic, but maybe, Ashley, you can shed some light on, there's not just one version of a person that is toxic or not, you know, like a great friend. What are the different types of toxic people you can get in this world?
Yeah. I think, again, with like most mental health things, most behaviors, it lies on a spectrum, right? So if we're talking about toxic behaviors, it can be that, perhaps that person is going through a really difficult time. Perhaps they're struggling with depression. And some of those symptoms would, of course, translate as toxic in a relationship. So, it can be isolated and we're responding to that. We're just trying to survive, right up to, the more extreme side of, let's say, someone with a personality disorder, such as narcissistic personality disorder. So I think it's really going to be on a spectrum, let's say this, excuse me, this like toxicity per se. So it can either be more your dominant sort of way of being or just in certain contexts.
All right, well, I think we've officially established what this is all about, but you aren't going anywhere, and I'm grateful for that, because we're going to carry on this conversation. I want to find out what happens when we potentially stay in that relationship and we don't do anything about it. So we'll unpack that question and a lot more in just a bit, so don't go anywhere. The specialists are waiting to serve.
It's my feel-good breakfast show.
Welcome back. It is your Feel Good Breakfast Show, and you're just in time as we're continuing our conversation around friendships. Now, leaving a relationship can be tough, be it romantic or platonic, but what's even more tough is when it's a toxic relationship. Now, manipulation will have you second-guessing your choices, and possibly loss of mutual friends will have you doubting. Now, to guide us through this tough yet very necessary conversation, we welcome back our panel. We have Ashley, Susan, as well as Lisa and Zetu joining us on the couch as we unpack this further.
Listen, the conversation we had earlier was insightful, to say the least, and it's something that I think put perspective on things. But I wanted to find out about what happens to those people that make the decision to stay in a toxic relationship or aren't even aware of it, but they find themselves in one. What do we do? What can potentially happen, and how do we become aware of that? Susan, maybe you can shed some insight on this one.
Yeah, it's such a difficult question to answer because toxicity comes in different forms, but often, we are wired for relationships and we build for relationships, and that's why it's tough to leave. But what can often happen is we create defense mechanisms or protection mechanisms to make ourselves feel safe in that relationship. And often those are maladaptions. So it's withdrawal, it's jealousy, and we almost sometimes take on some of those toxic traits in ourselves.
Okay.
And recognizing it in yourself is not always easy, and it's not always pleasant to have it pointed out. But Ashley, maybe you can shed some light on this. In the event you perhaps notice a family member or someone very close to you is that toxic person, what's the best way to address it?
Yeah, and I think that's a really great question because, we can often in the face of difficulties in relationships just shut down and walk away. But, it's always really helpful to try and understand a little bit what is going on. And often, we maybe reach out to that friend when we're feeling angry, when we're feeling upset. And maybe that's not the best way to communicate. So, choosing a time where you're calm, they're calm, and really just communicating how you feel, how their actions are making you feel, rather than doing the whole blame game, that you're this terrible friend, really just letting them know how their behavior is impacting you.
I like that. And again, I do believe these pieces of advice are essential and it's crucial, but it's easier said than done, right? Zetu, maybe I can ask you this. In the practical world, you someone that maybe isn't a counselor, but you have such a great level-headed mind to you. It's something I've definitely noticed. What have you maybe experienced when it comes to toxic friendships? Have you had to be in a situation where you need to address it or you become aware of it? And if so, how did you go about it? Because we've got all the advice here, but obviously, like I said, easier said than done, right?
It's absolutely easier said than done. I think that the older you become, the less inclined you are to immediately make friends, and you tend to nurture friendships that you've had for a long time. So when a friendship has been going on for a long time and it's no longer serving the purpose or the love is not reciprocal, it becomes a lot harder to leave. I don't know how I deal with it, but it's always good to make your feelings known to someone and to be honest, because if you're trying to build an honest, open relationship with your friends, with a partner, communication is always key.
Yeah, it is key, but like you said, it is hard, right? And that's something I'm trying to wrap my head around right now. Lisa, maybe you can add to this, because we get to that situation where I've been with someone for 10 years as a friend, right? And we're close, but we grow out of that friendship because things change or traumas come to light and we lose that way to express ourselves. At what point is it like too much? At what point do you have to say, look, this isn't serving my purpose. I'm as loyal as can be, but I'm stuck between a rock and a hard place now because I need to get out of this. What do you do in that sort of situation? Is there a solution even?
I think it's personal to each and every person, and I think we all have different bandwidths when it comes to what we can handle from different relationships. And also to mention that a relationship doesn't have to be toxic in order for you to leave it. Sometimes it reaches an expiration date and you just decide, let's go our separate ways. But yeah, I think when trying to leave a situation, it takes a lot of courage. I don't think there's a right way. I think it's something that you can reflect on personally, and always when it comes to these difficult conversations, to be as calm and respectful as possible, you know? Yeah, so that's my input.
I'm just thinking of friends who've got kids, and you know, often I think as a parent or an adult, you can witness that, hang on, this is maybe not the right friendship, or this dynamic doesn't work. Susan, do you have advice for parents who perhaps could be witnessing their kids being in a toxic friendship that you know, how can the parent step in without interfering? Is it even possible?
So, well, is it even possible? You know, I just think if you're looking in from the outside, and as a parent myself, you know, you've got to help children navigate relationships, you know, from this high, and it gets complicated, and the bigger they get, the more complicated it gets. And I think the thing is, again, openness, conversations, and to be reflective, and just to say, hey, this is what I'm seeing, and how does it, when you're with that person, how do you feel? And what should a good feeling be? You know, does that friend make you feel good about yourself? Do you have fun? Do you feel joy? And again, you know, as an adult, we say, is it an energizing relationship, or does it suck energy out of you? But as a child, as speaking to a child, you know, you've got to kind of use those simpler words, I guess, those more practical words. Does it give you joy? Do you feel anxious? And also to teach a child to trust what their body's feeling and to trust themselves right from get-go. Because what we really need to do is to help our children understand themselves and develop resilience, because they're going to meet them at some point.
Yeah, and such is life. Yeah, Zitra, so you want to add to that?
I'm a parent. I've got a 2-year-old and a 5-year-old. And a few weeks ago, one of my kids, the 5-year-old, was experiencing what I was witnessing to be a toxic friendship, but absolutely loves their friend. And absolutely that is the advice that I followed as well. But it's harder to make kids understand what you can see, and you also, as she mentioned, you want them to navigate their own way through life. So what I did was find the positive friendships and relationships she has and start creating more opportunities for her to hang out with the people that treat her well, that love her, so she's able to deduct that the other scenario may not be as fun and happy as the other one that she's in.
It makes sense. It's an interesting thing to navigate, actually. I mean, at first I was like, yeah, this is simple, this makes sense. I love this. I think this is a great conversation. Actually, maybe I can ask you to summarize this in some way and provide us with a tip in terms of how do we deal with this situation in the future? What is something to maybe look out for constantly, and how can we be better prepared next time around?
Look, I think we're talking about relationships, friendships,
Yeah.
romantic relationships, all of these kinds of, anytime we're interacting in a relationship, whether it's family members or a friend or our romantic relationships, how we can't always anticipate that someone is going to be toxic, right? First few months, things are great, even in friendships. But I think the best thing that you can do for yourself is work on your own self-esteem, work on your own values and your own boundaries. Then no matter who's going to come into your life, you are going to be able to value yourself and put down that boundary of like how you want people to treat you.
I love that.
Definitely.
Nice.
Well, thank you to each and every one of you. Susan, Ashley, Lisa, Zetu, thank you for joining this conversation. And knowing when to leave a friendship, it is a tough one. But sometimes you need to know what is the right choice for you and what you deserve. Now, I just want to say thank you once again to our incredible panel who was here this morning to join us in this conversation and just reminding us of just that.
Yeah, and of course, Mzansi, if you have any comments on this, come through on our social media channels, and of course our WhatsApp line, it's 063 408 8863. We'd love to hear from you.